The human brain is incredibly complex. Despite its complexity, neuroscientists have observed the brain primarily operates in two different states: approach and reward, and avoid threat. In the approach reward state, blood flows to the areas of the brain such as the prefrontal cortex, where higher order and complex cognition takes place. This area controls our executive functioning, allowing us to plan, prioritize, analyze, make decisions, and learn. Oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin are released, creating the sensation of pleasure and connection. When the brain enters the avoid threat state, which is triggered by a stimulus the brain recognizes as threatening or dangerous, it diverts resources to the parts of our brain responsible for the threat response, commonly known as fight or flight. Oxygen and glucose are moved away from our higher functioning prefrontal cortex and are directed toward our autonomic nervous system response, hampering executive functioning and rational thought. Adrenaline and cortisol, the stress hormone, are released. These chemicals elevate the body's heart rate, speed up breathing, and even thicken the blood to prepare a body for possible injury. Once triggered, it takes an average of 20 to 30 minutes for your body to return to its natural state. While Dale Carnegie may not have had the advantage of the same neuroscientific studies we have access to today, his strategies aligned near perfectly with what we know today about the brain's response to positive and negative stimuli. Most of the strategies in his well-known book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, are a type of positive stimuli that triggers the brain's approach-reward response, creating a neurologically enhanced feeling of connection to another person. For example, as we discussed last week, allowing people the opportunity to tell their stories creates a positive dopamine response, similar to eating a donut or other treat. However, the first principle in his book didn't start with positive stimuli like allowing others to talk about themselves. Instead, he started with how to avoid negative stimuli, or in neuroscientific terms, how to avoid triggering the fight or flight response. Carnegie famously said, "Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. But it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving." As we continue our exploration of likability as a tool for providing excellent customer service, we will use this session to discuss how not to make yourself instantly unlikable by being overly critical of your customers. While we may think of fight or flight being triggered by something that poses physical danger, like a lion or even heights, studies have repeatedly shown that fight or flight can be triggered by stimuli we encounter daily at home and in the workplace. When we think about it, this reaction is something we have all experienced in the workplace. Someone said something negative about us, our team, or our work, and we didn't just react with negative thoughts. We experienced a noticeable physiological reaction. Even when the topic changed, we felt distracted or flustered. Let's pause here to examine why our reaction to criticism was so strong by briefly examining the SCARF model proposed by David Rock. SCARF identifies 5 core domains of social experience. Each of these 5 spheres of life are so foundationally important to us. The more they are threatened, the stronger our fight or flight response kicks in. These 5 areas are status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. While criticism of any kind has the potential to create a negative reaction, Rock's research shows that these 5 particular topics are capable of producing a stronger, more visceral reaction because of their fundamental importance to people. For example, criticizing a customer by characterizing them as unintelligent or unskilled at their job will affect their professional sense of status. Criticizing a customer for something they did not do or by using mischaracterizations will affect their sense of fairness. These may trigger a stronger negative response in turn because of the importance to that customer of their sense of status and perceived fairness. So after all of this bad news about criticism, is it ever appropriate to say something negative? At times, constructive negative feedback is not only appropriate, but vitally important to our professional lives. However, there are steps that can be taken to minimize the irrational physiological response of the person on the receiving end. First, constructive criticism should always be given thoughtfully and with advanced planning. It shouldn't be reactionary or given as a defense against criticism directed towards you. Second, it should be provided within the context of what is being done well. If you trigger the approach-reward state prior to delivering negative feedback, you are more likely to avoid or soften the unwanted physiological reaction you would receive by starting with the negative rather than the positive. Third, It should be done in the spirit of trying to improve the situation, not just point out an unfixable problem. If the problem is not something within the person's control to fix, it is more often than not unprofitable to address in the first place. Fourth, take extra caution not to increase the perceived level threat with your body language, tone, facial expressions, and posture. We will learn more about this in another session. Fifth, evaluate the nature of your relationship and whether criticism is appropriate in its context. For example, if you are a member of HR and your internal customer is an employee with a desire to advance in your organization, negative feedback is vitally important to provide good customer service. Finally, the best critique is feedback given in the context of an established relationship that is built on trust. If a person already feels safe and supported, they experience less external threat to the 5 domains covered under the SCARF model, such as status and certainty. Last but not least, I want to address briefly what happens when we find ourselves on the receiving end of criticism from customers. First, try to anticipate and prepare for criticism. Shock increases the perception of threat level, and conversely, expectation can reduce it. Second, try to recognize and remind yourself that you are undergoing a physiological response that is causing you to perceive the situation less rationally. Remember, it takes 20 to 30 minutes for your brain to reset from the fight-flight response. Don't respond in the moment. Return to the conversation when you are in a better frame of mind. Try to reduce your physical reaction in the moment by controlling your breathing and relaxing your tensing muscles. Try actively engaging your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain. Rather than allowing yourself to slip into feelings like anger or resentment, start analyzing or planning something more productive, such as improvements that can be made to address the criticism. Next, just like grounding can reduce electric shock, try to find something that grounds you in the face of criticism. For example, keep a picture of your family or family pet near your desk. When you get an irate customer yelling at you, look at the picture and think about how you are loved. This anchors your sense of status and relatedness, 2 of Rock's fundamental experiential domains. It is difficult to like someone you do not believe likes you. It is even harder to like someone who threatens the most important facets of your life. Don't allow poorly thought out or improperly motivated criticism make you difficult to like. Until next time, thank you.